Okay, so now that we've looked at first the rubric and we've looked at how we're going to create the overview section of our course, we're going to go back and plan how we are going to go and create a module map or storyboard each element within our course. So this, you must go and have a look at your own course, get your piece of paper down, open Excel or whatever you're going to work on, and you're going to create a module map for your course. So what we're going to do is for each topic, so the way that we've structured our courses per topic, you might structure your course per week. So either per week or by topic, we're going to create a module map based on ensuring that we've got learning outcomes, assessments, activities, and resources. So I've already created a module map for our new module that we create in the example that I gave you. So if we're going to create one for Unit 1, so for each unit, you're going to do the same thing. We have our learning outcomes. So here are our 3 learning outcomes. For the sake of ease, I always like to ensure that everything is constructively aligned. So I highlight each learning outcome in a different color. You can have your own techniques that you use, and we ensure that those these learning outcomes are pulled through the resources, the activities, and the assessments, so that we ensure that those elements are all constructively aligned. Okay, so we can have a look here. We can see our 3 learning outcomes. The resources that we're going to use for topic 1 or for unit 1 will be, we're going to have a reading. So we're going to read from the handbook. You can see that I've put a column here just for myself that I must note that I'm going to make the handbook a PDF downloadable link, so it's easy for the learners to find. They're going to also have a lecture recording that they're going to use as a resource, and you can see which of the learning outcomes are covered by the lecture recording. So it will be a narrative PowerPoint presentation for Unit 1. I remember, because in terms of accessibility, that narrative PowerPoint presentation I've converted to MP4. So in other words, I've converted it to a video. Remember, the reason we do this is because a lot of our learners are going to be accessing the course on their mobile devices. And the second we're looking at something like Microsoft, we're asking them to open a Word or a PowerPoint document, there could be issues in terms of licensing. So do they need to have separate licenses or new licenses to open these devices, to open these documents on their mobile devices? Or they might also need to have a smarter phone if they're using a phone. So the idea is that we can always convert our PowerPoint presentations, if it's a plain PowerPoint presentation, to a portable digital format, PDFs, and those are accessible on all mobile devices. And obviously, if we're putting voice over in our PowerPoint presentations, we don't want to save them to PDFs because we're going to lose that voice. So what we're going to do is we're going to save them as videos, but we want to save them as MP4s, because remember, MP4s are much easier to be watched on mobile devices. The second, we try and use different .move or different kinds of saving videos in that way, they can be limited to certain mobile devices only. So what we want to do is we want to save them as MP4s. Another thing that I needed to remember for the lecture recording is that the transcript, there should always be a transcript. The second you have any form of audio, we're going to have a transcript. The third thing that our learners are going to have a look at in terms of resources is a video. So we're going to share with them a YouTube clip that they're going to be watching. And you'll see I've already made a note here. When I went and I sourced the clip, I ensured that there was closed captions. So in other words, there are subtitles at the bottom of the screen so that those learners that don't have access to maybe earphones or a speaker, or they are unable to hear the video, or at least are not disadvantaged. Then we can look at our activities, and once again, you'll see the activities I've linked to which kinds of the outcomes they are linked to ensure that we are covering all our outcomes. So the activities that they're going to complete, you'll see that we have a group discussion. This is actually going to be done in the live session. So I've made a note here for myself. This is going to be part of the live team session. They're going to have group breakaways, and they're going to have to report back to the group. It's important to have this here so that when we're doing planning in our courses, remember we plan a lot more in our online courses, that we plan to have those breakout groups for those live sessions. I already know that I need to divide this big group into smaller groups. and that they're going to need to make sure that we have time in our live session for them to have that discussion. Then you'll see that I've got an individual discussion in terms of 4 hour in our institution. This will be done on the discussion form on the learning management system. So where the students are going to summarize the discussion, and then they're going to do a personal journal reflection. So here I've given all the details of what we need to include in that personal journal tool. So the personal journal tool, I'm going to just call this as well, it's a discussion forum, but it's a different kind of discussion forum. It's just so that I remember that it needs to be a special kind of discussion forum when I build it on my learning management system. Then you'll see my assessment. So we have our group assessment, which is going to be a final assignment. This is going to actually be a summative assessment. Sorry, I lie. It's going to be a summative assessment. So it's going to, if we go back to our initial notes, we will see that this group assignment is actually going to count 10% of the mark. So here we have our summative assessment. You can see it's going to be covering learning outcomes 1 and 2 for this topic or this unit. You see that I've made some notes here for myself that I must include a rubric with guidelines with the current situation, exactly what is expected of those learners in the group assignments. And then the final activity is a personal journal. And you can see that all 3 of those learning outcomes are covered by this assessment. And I've given all the details. So once again, we're using the personal journal tool on the learning management system, which is of course a discussion forum, but it's just this different kind of settings that we need to set up. All right, so take the time to now go and have a look at your course. Go for each topic, go and break each of your topics up. If you're just doing it for the assignment, you can just do the first 3 topics. Work on your learning outcomes, resources, activities, and assessments. Ensure that they are nice and constructively aligned according to BIGS. And then make yourself a good module map, or also known as our storyboard that you can create.